Great. Thank you so much, Bram, for this inspiring presentation. And I think really nice to have a very concrete example of a food systems analysis so that it starts to live a bit more of how that looks like. I know we're reaching the end of our 1.5 hours, but I have a couple of questions to you before Bram will close with us. Um, Bram, what I saw in the questions in the chat was a question about uh, the cost and the timeline of a food system analysis like this. So can you maybe reflect a bit on maybe in general to do a proper food system analysis? What kind of timeline are we looking at? Um, um, and depending on the context, yeah, what what would be a price tag for doing a good food system analysis?
Okay, I'll start with the cost. I don't remember, to be honest. This was this was a while ago. Look, I mean, there's a couple of ways of doing this, I would say, and I think the food system decision toolbox also reflects that a little bit. I would say there's a couple of levels in which you can do this, right? So you can sort of have quite a substantial budget to, hire researchers, to hire facilitators, to have a range of different workshops, right? So that's on the more sort of cost heavy level. I think that is also that should be considered as an investment, right? Because I think it is very useful to have a very detailed and well, prepared understanding of a food system, and it can, deliver on the long term very positive, return on effort. But having said that, I mean, you don't need to have a lot of resources to do a couple of these different things, right? So if you don't have the capacity to, have a whole team of researchers on this, it might just be useful to have a lot of different stakeholders just coming together in a room and to just do a whole bunch of rich pictures and a couple of other interactive tools, right? That sort of are coming from a systems perspective. And doing that will also help you to get into the perspective of using food systems as a lens. So I would say, yes, it can be costly to do this. It can take time. So the Myanmar work did take like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months to do. The advantage was that it was COVID time. So essentially, there was a couple of other stuff we weren't doing. But yeah, I mean, so there's different ways to go about it. And it depends a bit on your scope, the budget that you have, and also what you want to get out of it. So that's my answer.
Yeah, thank you, Bram, for reflecting on that. And I think we see it in our work as well. It's just that you can do this with an external research partner, but there's a lot of potential also based on the toolbox that you will find on the platform to just start working with this yourself and maybe have a strategic session on this of a couple hours or a workshop with stakeholders where you start applying some of these tools. So you can do it in a light way as well. And of course, the depth and the value of the analysis will be maybe bigger if you invest more resources, but it doesn't mean that if you do it smaller, it won't be useful. So I think that's good to reflect on. Um, Helena, I was wondering, in your experience, what do you see as the core contribution of the systems thinking that you were highlighting for analyzing food systems? Where does it really add value?
I think where it adds value is particularly at policy level to understand how the different issues are connected. Because in many countries, whether it's here in Europe or in Africa or in Asia, we have all our different ministries, and one deals with environment, and another one with health, and another one with agriculture, and it's disconnected. But I think this food system approach helps to find the connections between those different policies and sectors and so on. And you also see that whether it's certain communities or governments, national governments, they start to sort of develop a food system strategy, trying to find a connection between all those different issues. I think at that level, I see really an added value. And maybe, Bram, I think you have more experience with local interventions where at community level, it might also help to bring community members together to set some priorities what do we find important. But personally, I have less experience with that.
Can I just jump into that? There was a comment in the chat about, a whole bunch of research that was done by FAO and CIRAD on food system analysis. And I think it's actually very useful to just have a look at that, because indeed there's a lot of stuff already being done. So there's no need to sort of reinvent the wheel at the same time. But having said that, related to what Helena was just saying, I think you really need to see food systems analysis not as an academic or research exercise, but actually as an intervention exercise, because the very process of bringing together stakeholders to talk about the food system is an intervention. And that is so critical, because often it's seen as a desk-based exercise, and it's absolutely not. The whole reason why we can't sort of understand food systems and map them all, and there's no way we can ever sort of understand the whole complexity of it, and it will change, like Eleanor said, right? It will change the next day, it will change within months, right? So you have to get out of that research space and into that sort of intervention space, because otherwise you'll just keep doing these analyses and will not go in food system transformation direction.
Great, thanks, Bram, for reflecting on that. I was also wondering, I mean, I know you from Foresight for Food are also doing a lot of work around foresight, but also on food systems analysis. So do you have any examples of how you're using food systems analysis to also support, let's say, national food system transformation agendas?
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, I think like I said, we need to have a separate session perhaps on this next time, just I think there's a lot of richness that we're getting from there. And I think what we're doing with Foresight for Food is that we're sort of trying to really attach our work to a demand base from the governments and from the countries that we're working with, defining the scope of what we're looking at, using food systems analysis to sort of get a more complete, a better picture of the food system, but also get people to discuss already what's happening in the food system and what dynamics there are, what are trends emerging, what are the uncertainties that people are seeing, and then to get into a discussion about, okay, so food system transformation for what? What future is that then sort of supposed to give us that transformation? And then you get into a very interesting discussion where you're sort of using scenarios as a way to sort of get people to open their minds about what's possible. At the same time, get people out of a defensive space of saying, like, I need to change, but I don't want to change. It's about sort of how can we together move into a more positive, desirable future, and how does that future then look? And that galvanizes a lot of support. And we're using that sort of perspective to talk to policymakers about pathways for change. It's about bringing together private sector, farmer, and NGOs to talk about, what business model of the future could you be talking about? What are critical challenges we need to be preparing for now rather than just, put it off and wait? This is a particular issue in the Netherlands, by the way. In Netherlands, we're waiting and seeing for way too long, but anyway, yeah.
Thank you, Bram, for those reflections. I was wondering, maybe to close off for you, Helena, I was wondering, of course, we see that there's benefits of food system analysis, both for looking at what are potential leverage points, as well as for having a good multi-stakeholder discussion about what the food system should deliver, and how that can be organized. I was wondering, what do you see as sort of pitfalls of food system analysis, and how to overcome those?
Pitfalls. There might be many. One is that we want to dive into everything, so it's a never-ending story, and sometimes we need to be very critical at ourselves, like, this is what I need to know, and many things we also need to accept. Maybe we cannot fully understand certain elements, so we need to, it's easily, you can easily get lost in all those rabbit holes of things that you try to understand. So be critical how you use your resources, your time, your energy, and also, who do you invite to the table? Do you really give them space to bring in their voices, to bring in their knowledge and skills? Or is it more like an exercise to justify the legitimacy of what you're doing, but you do not really give them space to share their own knowledge or voices. I think those are two that I can think of. There are many for sure.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you're
thank
putting
you.
me on the spot here, so I'm just mentioning two for now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is very insightful already. Bram, maybe
Can I
to
jump in on that? Because I
really,
think this is such a good question, right? I think there's two things, and I think actually, I would say a key pitfall was mentioned by Helena, is that if you have an idea of an intervention with a predetermined single focus, I think that is really a big pitfall, because often we say we're open to sort of learning from the context, but we have in the back of our mind and in our back pocket something that we've done, and we're sort of eager to push. And I think that also relates to what Helena was saying, is that we have to be self-critical, right? We have to be able to reevaluate what we're doing and to do something else if that's needed. And that means probably we need to collaborate, because we can't do everything ourselves. And then the last maybe quote that I have that could be, that I find very important, is that it's also being self-critical about saying, how, despite our best efforts, have we not been able to change the system? And how does my role or my organization also contribute to that system not changing? And that is a very powerful question. And it's a very confronting question to everyone who's working in development aid, right? So how can, despite we've been working on this issue for such a long time, we've not been able to change this? And do we need to do something differently ourselves as well?
great. No, then I think good to end with those reflections. And thank you so much, both Bram and Helena, for your great presentations today. I think they really shed some interesting light about what can be the role of food system analysis. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you next year again.